here. Hi, Michael.
Yes,
Good to see you.
Michael is back.
I'm
Yay.
here. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Let's give him work. Let's talk about how much work we can give Michael. This
I'm
is
good.
the,
Sign me up. No
Yep,
promise.
there you go. This is the secure and governed planning call for planning 16.5. And let us start off by looking at out of offices. There's a Friends and Family Day coming up, and apparently there's a holiday on the 9th. What is that holiday? I already was taking it off, but
Columbus Day.
No,
Really?
Indigenous Peoples Day. Actually.
Right.
Indigenous. Yes, thank you for the correction, Becca.
You're welcome.
That's how it showed up in my calendar. So
Yeah.
Oh,
My
your
mom was a
calendar's
Native
bad.
American rights activist, so she would shame me forever if I didn't say the proper updated name for it.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. And then there's some other people taking other days off. So take a look at that and just be mindful of it when we're doing our work going forward in 16.5. Next up, looking at the sus impacting, there's no S1s and there's one S2, which Sarah, you have made a comment.
Yeah, it's just an issue the team has looked at quite a bit and put a fair amount of effort into, but there's not an easy fix. And we haven't gotten any kind of support cases related to it. So we've deprioritized it in the short term so we can focus on our high priorities.
Okay, that's this one, right? I didn't put,
Yeah.
I put the right link in.
Yep.
Yeah, last I saw there was some workaround, but I was trying to understand if it was obvious to the user what the workaround was. You know anything about that?
I'm not sure if it's obvious. I will follow up on that part.
Okay. Cool. Otherwise, that's it for sus impacting. So go us. Nice job. Let's look at compliance needs. No needs. You need nothing.
Yeah, I don't think there is a currently prioritized thing for compliance.
That's awesome. Okay. Let's look at composition analysis. Do we know who put this here?
Yeah, I added it. It's actually an issue that spans composition analysis and threat insights, but basically customers don't have a way to see in the UI if there's an error ingesting an SBOM, and that is going to become more of a problem when CVS is complete, which is the major initiative the composition analysis team is working on. So the ask was, where should we display these errors in the UI?
Okay. What did you say that it spans composition analysis and what else?
Threat insights.
Okay.
I don't know if this is related, but it's kind of interesting seeing that issue there, Sarah, as well. I feel like there could be other errors related to like security configuration that we don't have a good place to display in the MR. So I wonder if there's a broader theme. And I'll be talking about in security policies a few things like also like security violations, but then there could be errors with how that's supposed to function in the MR, and the users might need a way to trace back and understand like why their merge request is blocked. So I don't know, it comes to mind because I think that's another kind of common challenge, is like where to put some of the extra stuff like errors and things that may not be related to the normal developer workflow, or they may be unrelated. So just a thought.
Oh, they definitely sound related. It's a good point. I guess we don't have a standard format for this.
So there's the issue open for security notifications. I'm trying to find the link right now. But that would only solve notifications on the vulnerability report. But maybe we could carry over a similar pattern into the MR. It's just, it seems like Justin and I have talked about this. I don't feel confident designing anything for the MR because there's so many ongoing efforts with it. But we could take this kind of pattern and bring it over there at some point.
Cool. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
we have to
asking.
figure out the nuance of the MR changes and redesign stuff. You know, we could figure out how to fit it in once we understand what the problem is we're trying to solve.
Sounds
Yeah, I
good.
think that might address Grant's comment, but then the errors related to the SBOM would be unrelated to MR, like the MR widget.
Yeah, so I know that Threat Insights doesn't have this report notifications on our roadmap right now. I don't know if that's something that your team has bandwidth to build out, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the like specific issue that I called out, if you look at it, it's gone back and forth between Threat Insights and composition analysis, and there's a little bit of back end work that has to happen, but the front end work is something we would definitely be willing to take on. It's just there's no design, so in my mind, that's why I added it here, because I thought that might be the first step towards us, you know, aligning on it across the teams and implementing it.
Yeah,
But
that
we'd
makes
be
sense.
happy to do the front end work for sure.
Okay.
Do you have an idea of when you would want this ready for build? What milestone, for instance?
I mean, as soon as we can do it. Best answer always.
So if you're saying like 16.5 or 16.6, for instance, then that will, this is already saying it's a high priority, but then we have the additional higher priority by saying I really need this next milestone.
Yeah, I mean, it's an error message, so it's probably not a higher priority than the other UX work that's happening, but I think our team would like to build it if it is ready. So
Okay.
16.5, 16.6, 16.7
Okay.
next quarter, if possible.
So there, I don't know where my Zoom controls are. Oh, there. So there is a rough design in that design report notifications that I linked there. I don't know if the below comment is accurate. This may address Grant, but not SBOM. I feel like that would address SBOM, but not Grant's problem, which is MR.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that issue too closely yet, so I didn't want to comment yet.
Yeah, okay.
But I can speak to kind of what we're thinking on security policies for UX priorities, and that might shed some light as well.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah, maybe you want to look into that design report notifications and let me know,
Sure.
confirm that that's something that would solve your problem, and I might be able to like dabble in it. That was largely a handoff from Andy. Those were his designs, so it may need to be thought through a little bit more because I think the designs are kind of high level, but it should give you enough to
Yeah, it
start.
looks great
Yeah.
from first glance.
Okay.
So that's like the standard you guys would want to use across secure and governed features, basically.
I mean, this is a really old issue. I haven't talked about this with Alana yet because it's just not hasn't been prioritized, but yeah, I mean, it's been sitting 2 years, 2+ years ago. It's just a collapsible area on the vulnerability report, just to avoid like stacking alerts. But I mean, I think we'd have to think through iconography, colors, the order in which things appear a little bit more. But we can definitely come up with just an MVC for this if it's something that your team can build, start building.
Awesome.
I think I can come up with like a simple enough MVC framework. I would just need the like the type of alerts that may pop up.
Okay.
I guess we also have to consider how does that also coexist with the pipeline, the most recent pipeline that we just added the SBOM information to, because I could see this replacing that, or like including that information in this report notifications. So there's just like some smaller considerations, but at least we have this like general framework of what we want to do. But yeah, I mean, I guess whenever your team can start building it, I can go in there and work with them in a low touch way anyways.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so y'all can communicate in, I suppose, either of these issues to hash out the requirements. So either in this issue or the one that you linked, Becca.
Yeah.
That works. Nothing for dynamic analysis. And policies.
And we can organize these issues differently in the different tables. I wasn't sure how best to approach that, but what I would say is you might consider 1, 3, and 4 as related. And I was going to we have a lot of discussion in the comment thread if you want more context or insight there, but I was going to raise to Camellia as an idea, as well as maybe we can create a UX theme to put up in the table above to link these together. But ultimately, this is about improving the accuracy of the security policy approval logic and when violations are raised. And then also making it more transparent to developers, security team members, compliance team members in the MR. So they're all kind of interrelated, just making sure that we're not slowing down teams because there's an error or they're not clear which violation or what vulnerability or what issue caused the violation. You'll recognize 4 from the UX theme that Michael Fangman, you had worked on. We are trying to incorporate that, but 1 is more of an MVC state because 4 surfacing the policy violation details in the diff view would only be like highlighting the vulnerabilities that cause a violation, and it wouldn't go broader for things like a misconfiguration or an error on our end that may be causing an approval to be required, and we want to be able to service that somewhere. And that's kind of what I was relating earlier, is that if there is something that should be working in the MR experience, but there's an error on our end, or there are these other kind of edge cases, I don't feel like there's a common way to service that. And so I think of it as like blocking for the developer. They want to resolve that as quickly as possible. Security and compliance teams want to resolve it as quickly as possible. So yeah, if there's any confusion, anything that's not going as planned, a way to trace that back, troubleshoot, and address any errors is, I think, important. You know, top priority versus more of like a passive report outside of the MR is my thinking there. Yeah, so those are the priorities. 1 and 2. One in that theme, I guess. One is more actionable. It's an MVC, and it's going to be exploring how to just surface like a list of the violations in a comment. We already have a security bot that we are using to notify users when the pipeline is completed and the evaluation has taken place from a security policy standpoint. So we can leverage that to extend it and start showing if there are configuration errors that are very common that are resulting in just like failing closed and blocking merge requests. And we could also list particular vulnerabilities causing the violation. So this is a good way to get that smallest possible iteration out there, and then we can look at how to evolve that in essentially 3 and 4. I'll pause there for a second in case there's any questions or comments.
I like the idea of looking at these as a whole to see how you can combine them in a theme, and then working thematically to see how these all can be designed together. So Camellia, if you can work with Grant to figure that out, that would be awesome. Second, this is a lot of stuff that is relevant to the MR redesign work. So we'll have to balance fitting it into existing versus redesign and how that's going to time out.
Yeah, one will I think be outside of it. The priority 1 there is just a comment, and we already have a pattern for that. I think with 3 and 4, we'll have some things that we'll want to kind of consider, and again, those are both right now nice to have. For 16.5, there could be some outcomes from 3 that we're exploring, like use cases that may lead to inaccuracies. And I think the one like case that's not well addressed, so we don't have a way to show it in the MR very well, is if there's a policy defined to detect pre-existing vulnerabilities, the MR widget is intended to be focused on changes made in that MR specifically. So that would appear these would appear in the pipeline report, but how do we communicate to the user that an approval is blocked because of this policy that is based on pre-existing vulns? So there's some things like that we're exploring, and if you open that issue, there are a number of use cases. And 3, improve how AppSec teams handle vulnerability management, etc. We're breaking down those use cases and how we'll be addressing some things will be happening outside of security policies to make things more accurate. I think that pre-existing vulnerability use case is the one that we'll need to figure out how we want to handle, especially. There's a few other things, and we're doing an engineering spike that will help us to better understand the state of things as well. So yeah, I think we'll learn some things in this milestone, and there will be some likely design outcomes like to start on. So that's why it's still nice to have. I think things will evolve a bit in this milestone. And then the other ones I haven't yet mentioned, priority 2 is adding like a toggle to configure a policy to fail open or fail closed. And that is going to aid in adoption. We've had a lot of feedback about how kind of restrictive policies are when working with like scan result policies and scan execution policies. So this will kind of put more of the onus on ensuring scan execution is properly configured. And then if scanners are present, then the scan result policies can be a bit more lenient and only enforce assuming that the execution is properly configured. And it's really kind of like a step in the adoption process. So once teams adopt the policies, then they will likely want to continue to increase the level of enforcement or compliance around it. But it's really hard to get started with policies, especially scan result policies, because of how restrictive they are. And there could be a number of checks that we include in fell close versus fell open that makes it easier to kind of level that level of enforcement. And then the
Okay.
last one, 5. I mean, I talked with Camellia. You can see our discussion there. I'm also happy if this isn't. I put this like latest on the priority list for as far as ready to build by. But I think we'll just want to dabble a little bit into this, start some discussion, at least to get a sense of what Camelia's been thinking, and just we haven't had an opportunity to go too deeply on this, and we know that there's likely some UX improvement needed. The security policy projects and maintaining those is a bit clunky right now. But the other things that we're working on are just a bit higher priority. So so yeah, if anything falls off, it'll be that one for this model for 16.5.
Okay. Becca, you're writing a comment.
Yeah, since I'm not touching the MR, the 10-foot pole, and we have focused on an area which we actually have more control over, which is the security tab of the pipeline page. There we are wrapping up conversations there about naming conventions and stuff, but essentially we're going to be adding a filter where you can view by existing vulns on the branch versus new vulns being introduced by the MR. And somebody in the thread suggested that we may want to default to just new ones, since that's what the developer cares about. But now I'm hearing Grant say that, there might be policies blocking an MR from the existing vulns. So I don't know if that would be confusing to default to the new ones. If
Yeah.
We're gonna have to figure that part out, because there's we from working with the create folks, we definitely want the MR to focus on changes that the author created in that MR. Now, I understand that there can be real-time things that are happening that will come up and say, you didn't introduce this per se, but you're using a service that is introducing it now that we know that it exists. So we'll have to figure out how to surface that without, I don't know, in an intelligent way that helps them
Yeah,
progress.
I'll add, I think one thing I would like to be able to do is to do some analysis on the YAML files for policies and get a better insight into the various configurations and options and how much users are adopting those, and like specifically how many customers are leveraging this pre-existing vulnerability option. I think that it's probably not as common. It's probably pretty rare in some cases, except for the fact that we did just recently add a filter to scan result policies that will allow you to essentially ignore vulnerabilities for a particular amount of time. And a lot of security teams have like an SLA driven workflow. So if it's a high severity issue, maybe you have 30 days to resolve it. So with this filter, you can set that policy and say, we're going to ignore it. You can merge. We'll ignore it for 30 days. It'll go into the vulnerability report. You'll still need to take steps to create an issue and add a due date. And then developers should work against that and have it resolved within 30 days. But if they do not, then this scan result policy would start blocking merge requests. So it is kind of a way to say, like, you get a little bit of a leeway to address the issue within the SLA, but then we can start enforcing against it. So I think that will be a more relevant use case compared to previous to adding that filter. But yeah, happy to review the designs and share my feedback there as well. So don't hesitate to ping me on those.
Okay, that works. Let's look at static analysis. There isn't anything, I don't know, Michael, if you know.
No, I know there's
anything.
some stuff in the works, but I haven't nailed down specifically anything to focus on for this upcoming milestone with Connor yet. So, but I'll work with him to try to get something on the books there.
Cool. The red insights.
So for 16.5, we're going to be focused on dependency list grouping, filtering, and searching. Yeah, I think for this, unless the team wants to build out the new custom filter token pattern that I just went through solution validation on, it's probably going to be the filtered search component. But yeah, there's no designs in there yet. Sam White created those, and it's something we want to prioritize. So
Okay.
those two, and then
Can I just
solution.
add that it's worth mentioning that for the dependency list grouping, something that is in scope for there is grouping by license, and that's so we can deprecate and remove what's already deprecated. We can remove the license
column.
piece. We can remove the license compliance page.
Oh,
Yep.
Gotcha.
So yeah. Anyways, let's continue.
awesome. Are those at the project or the group level? I don't know if that's clarified.
I think it's both.
Okay.
There's for those issues, it should be both. Yeah.
And then solution validation.
And then solution validation for moving Explain This Full into GA. So I'm going to do a UX scorecard process and give some users tasks. Just to speed this up, I'm going to do it unmoderated on user testing, but I need to come up with the tasks and set success. Actually, I don't have to set success criteria. I think that's already built into the UX scorecard. I mean, there's been ongoing conversations about whether or not, Justin, I know we talked about this yesterday in our UX AI meeting, but there's been ongoing conversations about whether or not to separate out the quality of the response from the UX evaluation. So there are currently 2 issues open to treat them separately. So this would just be the UX and not evaluating the quality of the response.
Okay. Yeah, we can continue to work through that and get Katie involved as well to help.
Yeah.
Because a few other groups are trying to figure this out. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Research needs before we run out of time.
Yeah, I just I added an item about just trying to discover onboarding friction points for dependency scanning specifically. I think I might have added dynamic analysis as well, but it's related to like one of our top DevSecOps adoption themes for the year. And so I don't think we've done research previously to identify like what are the actual friction points to simplify scanning further. So just wanted to identify other areas we might need to prioritize some usability improvements going forward.
Okay. Michael Oliver, is this on your radar?
Yep. Both of these, I'll answer the next one too. Both of these are on my radar. Grant and Sarah and I both talked about each of these recently, last few days. Don't know exactly what the the method that makes sense in the expected timeline. Sorry, random phone call. For the onboarding one though, possibly increasing the scope is on my radar to not just composition analysis and DAST, but possibly more. But yeah.
Okay. This is my takeaway from what you just said.
Correct.
Awesome. All right. We're a little bit over, so thank you all for sticking around. Continue conversations with your counterparts or inside this issue if you don't have a design counterpart, and we'll take it from there. Any questions before we adjourn?
Nope. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
One last tiny comment. I'm doing the survey for all the jobs to be done for Govern. If you have not looked at that, please look at it because I will be finishing the survey. So last chance to add anything or get any feedback in there.
Since you mentioned jobs, the product call that we had just before this one, everyone's talking about competitors. How do we stay innovative and fresh and whatnot? User goals and user needs, which is i.e. jobs to be done. If we have those and we have confidence in those, that will drive us forward with innovation and thinking outside the box. So I didn't say that because I didn't feel like opening that can of worms in the call, but something to consider. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.